Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is probably the future of Saudi Arabia. This is a 31-year-old Saudi Arabian prince who I think is very likely going to be the next king of Saudi Arabia after his father dies. His father is 80 years old, is supposedly currently suffering from dementia, has memory lapses, problems with remembering. When the previous king died and King Salman took over, he did a major shakeup. There is another person in line for the throne, another crown prince, and Nafeh, N-A-Y-E-F. But he's in his late 50s. He suffered an assassination attempt years ago, and not that long ago. He is in the shadows. He stays in the shadows. And probably worse for him is he has diabetes, and that you can pretty much cut 5 to 10 years off your life expectancy if you have that. So he's already in his late 50s. So if he were to become king, it's a question of how long he would actually survive in that. Now, bin Salman, the crown prince, when his father took over, he made his son, one of many, I think he's the 7th child or 7th son, head of defense, minister of defense, head of the royal court, which is kind of like, for Americans, this is kind of like the cabinet is in the White House. He's kind of like the chief of staff of the cabinet for the Saudi Arabian royal house. Now, some things you need to know about the Saudi Arabian royal house. Princes are a lot. I mean, there are a lot of princes and princesses around. The estimates vary, but the most consistent one I hear is there's about 10,000 princes, and about the same number of princesses. Unlike, say, the British monarchy, which by the way has 2 princes right now, they are in despair, and that's done by oldest child gets the crown. It's not how it operates in the Saudi Arabian monarchy. It is like a consensus of the royal family determines who's going to be the next king. Right now, the king has invested huge amounts of power into his 30-year-old son. Head of defense, head of the court, head of the economics. His son came out recently, relatively recently, with what's called Vision 2030. This is the vision for Saudi Arabia. But make no mistake, this is the Crown Prince's bin Salman's vision for the country. Something you need to understand about Saudi Arabia is that more than 70% of the population is under the age of 30. The reports vary, but the unemployment rate officially I think is like 11.5%, but unofficially it's like 25% or higher. They have a country that has become very dependent on government subsidies, cradle to the grave, welfare benefits. I did a video about recently when they had their first ever pay cut. Here's a link to that video. Crown Prince bin Salman was behind that. It was his initiative that did that. He's also the Minister of Defense. He overtly is waging the war in Yemen, but I think covertly he's backing ISIS. In this video, I talk about ISIS's next big move, which I think is actually Saudi Arabia's next big move. Just briefly, I believe ISIS was the creation of Saudi Arabia as a countermeasure against Iran. You have to understand in the Middle East, the two main powers are Saudi Arabia and Iran. They're conflicting with each other. Now, President Obama sided with Iran. The U.S. has traditionally sided with Saudi Arabia. Though, interestingly enough, it has come to light that Saudi Arabia has funded Hillary Clinton's campaign. Up to 20% of her campaign was funded by Saudi Arabia. Ouch. That might come back to bite them with President Trump. Although Trump wasn't really out there soliciting really donations, he mastered the election, I think, from beginning to end. I know the liberal press likes to say that he was surprised to have won. I don't think he was surprised he had won at all. I think he knew exactly what he was doing. For Saudi Arabia, though, I don't know if what they can do. They need to repair their relations with the U.S., although they're becoming less dependent on the U.S. at the same point. Vision 2030 is talking about how they can Saudi Arabia progress beyond oil, basically. They want to have their citizens get out of unemployment, be more engaged, getting into the manufacturing and technology industries. That's all good. But another interesting thing is, from a libertarian standpoint, is Crown Prince bin Salman has greatly reduced the power of the religious police within Saudi Arabia. Really cracked down. When two religious leaders basically publicly attacked him, well, they're now in jail. Now, from a libertarian standpoint, them being in jail is not great. We like freedom of speech. But you have to understand how ruthless the religious police were and are in Saudi Arabia, although now their power has been diminished. And that's largely because bin Salman's actions. He still gives lip service to the Quran, to Islam, etc. And he may be a true believer. But he doesn't believe that the future is being religiously intolerant. He has pulled back, has declawed a lot of the powers of the religious police and has pushed them to the side. How far that will go, I don't know. Now, I know some libertarians are going to be very upset with Saudi Arabia, and they're not going to call it libertarian at all. And I'm not saying that Saudi Arabia is libertarian at all. But I'm an incrementalist libertarian, a pragmatic libertarian. I believe we got to work from where we are and get to where we want to be, and we can't just be that overnight. And on that scale, what the Crown Prince bin Salman has done is in the right direction. It will be very interesting to see what he does. Kind of like the touchstone for social issues in Saudi Arabia is whether or not women are allowed to drive. And if that prohibition is ever removed, I think it would be a very good indication that the Crown Prince has made that final step, that he is now moving his society into the modern society, the modern world. Might not, but he talks about increasing the number of women in the workforce, I believe from 22 to 30%. And that's a good indication that he wants a more modern society, and he needs a more modern society. He is like a court, a royal court, and they truly are a monarchy. How you can tell what they are is the people that they have around them, who you see them with, who they interact with, who is part of their entourage, what things they support, they become patrons for. For libertarians, a great sign would be as if the Crown Prince were to have a libertarian in his entourage, or where he would regularly meet with him, or well, like a YouTube channel he would be a patron of. This doesn't mean that he is a libertarian or that he's going to become a libertarian, but it does show that he is more open to these ideas, and that's right now a good thing. The Crown Prince has a lot of support among the young people. And that's where under 30 represents 70% of the population of Saudi Arabia. Under 24 it represents 50% of the population, and he's very popular with them. And they want change. They want to move into the modern world. And so it's going to be very interesting watching him. So if the father dies, the current king dies soon, probably Nafif, the current first in line Crown Prince, may sideline Crown Prince bin Salman. But if the king is able to live possibly only a few more years, Crown Prince bin Salman may be able to consolidate his power and become the next king. And if he does, he's only 31 right now. You're looking at stability, and I think that's one of the things that the king was looking at when he picked this little youngest son and invested in him with so much powers, is if bin Salman becomes the Crown Prince bin Salman becomes the king, you're looking at a monarch that may last at least 40 to 50 years, if not more. You're looking at something like Queen Elizabeth, where she lasts generations after generations, and that provides stability for their country. And if he has a view of trying to transform them into a modern country, I can't see how that would be a bad thing for their country. It could backfire. You just have to look at what happened to Nicholas Frederick, I believe, in Russia, when he tried to modernize Russia too fast, and they had the revolt, and the end result was the Communist Revolution. But this is a positive, I believe. It has potential. Watch for what he does. Watch who he has around him. This is the man to pay attention to. I don't think Crown Prince Nafif, again, N-A-Y-F, N-Y-E-F, is the one to watch. Again, he has diabetes, he's in his late 50s, he is reclusive, he's in the shadows, where Crown Prince bin Salman is just the opposite. Youthful, healthy, energetic, and has lots of power. He's the one to watch. Watch what he does, who he associates with, who is in his court, who he patronizes. And from us libertarians, if he were to associate himself with well-known libertarians, or even lesser-known libertarians, it would be a huge sign that there might be actually a really positive change. Libertarianism is the best thing for an economy. It just is. We try to keep government to a minimum. We try to have economic opportunities to be the greatest. And so if this Crown Prince bin Salman were to be seen more associating with libertarians, I think it would be a great sign. Not saying that he has. I've done a lot of research on him. I don't know a single libertarian that is in his court or that he's been associated with. But I'll keep a stay eye out on, and if I ever see one, I'll report it. Anyways, this is a person to pay attention to. Saudi Arabia has a huge influence in the region. Their oil has a huge influence around the world. And this person, this young man, this 31-year-old man, may be its face for the next 40, 50, if not 60 or more years. Someone we should keep an eye on. Anyways, that's for today. I'll see. Oh, if this is your first time you've been watching one of my videos, thank you for the view. Please subscribe. In the last 20 seconds of this video, you'll see a screen with my picture in a circle. Click on that and please subscribe to it. If you like this video, especially if you're from Saudi Arabia, please send links of this around. I'd be very interested in hearing feedback from Saudi Arabians in the comment section below. If you know the King Ben Salman, please forward a link to him on this video. It would be very interesting to meet him. It'd be very interesting to interview him. Also, I have a mailing list, and when that mailing list gets up to 100 subscribers, I'll start producing a weekly unlisted video where I reply to some comments posted to last week's batch of public videos. If you'd like to see these future reply comment videos, in the description below is a link to the mailing list sign up form. Please subscribe. All right, that's it for today. Bye.